never thought I would ever say this, but thank you, Ben Shapiro. Now, hold on before y'all get mad. The reason why I'm thanking Ben Shapiro is because he helped expose Gavin Newsom for the fake and phony that he is. Gavin Newsom is the typical greasy-haired politician who will just change depending on who he's talking to. In this interview, there were so many moments where Gavin Newsom really could have took control of the conversation, but Ben Shapiro literally was just beating them and beating them and beating them. Let's go ahead and take a look at this, but first, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, and let's get into it, y'all. So in real Gavin Newsom fashion, he throws his press office under the bus, his Twitter account. He throws Kamala Harris. He lies on her. And also he takes a jab at AOC. Plus, he doesn't know what's a boy, what's a girl. He fails on the trans conversation, as well as, it's not just that. He doesn't believe that what's happening over in Gaza is a genocide. If you thought Kamala had a hard time, this fool is in for a world of hurt. Let's go ahead and take a look, you guys. So the first part that I'm going to show you guys is when they're talking about Renee Good, and Ben Shapiro calls him out for basically his press office tweeting out state-sponsored terrorism, right? And so instead of Gavin Newsom defending that, he actually says, oh yeah, I understand. Let's take a look, y'all.
You have to be very aware of audience capture because you need to win votes. But I mean, just to take as a recent example, what happened in Minneapolis, I think that the normie response to what happened in Minneapolis is this is obviously a tragedy from a sort of legal perspective. Putting on my lawyer hat, the intent of Renee Good is not relevant to the question of the intent of the officer, right? If you're gonna prosecute the officer, then you'd have to determine whether an objective, reasonable officer would have perceived that he was being threatened by her vehicle when he shot her. And it seems to me that you could voice a fairly strong defense in a court of law that an objectively reasonable officer, since he actually was nudged with the car at the very least, would have perceived it that way. Now, this immediately broke down into two separate narratives, both of which I think are untrue. One was a narrative that was immediately pushed by the Trump administration and Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, that she was a domestic terrorist who was attempting to run over officers with her car and was legitimately trying, not just this officer, but multiple officers. That was the original statement. I said at the time, I thought that was untrue. And then your press office tweeted out that it was state-sponsored terrorism, which, I mean, Governor, I do have to ask you about that. Yeah. That sort of thing makes our politics worse.
Yeah.
And it does.
Yeah.
I mean, our ICE officers obviously are not terrorists.
Yeah.
A tragic situation is not state-sponsored terrorism.
Yeah.
And here's
when it comes to ICE, I mean,
Gavin Newsom totally gets railroaded. If anything, he should have said, well, Ben, what else would you call it? Considering that people are being dragged from their jobs, their homes, even at court, when they're trying to get their paperwork done, they're getting dragged at court. You literally have people being harassed. They're doing traffic stops on American citizens. There was a video I told you guys about where it was this black guy who was all like, we're from this country. Like, we don't even have an accent. And they're asking me for my ID to make sure I'm legit. Like, what's going on here? There was even the story about how there was tear gas that was underneath a car and a 2-year-old almost died. Like, it's serious what's going on. I don't know what else you call it. And it is being funded by, well, the feds. That's who it's being funded by, but the government essentially. So yeah, it is state-run terrorism. Like, I don't know why he couldn't explain that. And no, he does not say what I said in here at all. He just nods his head. Yeah. Are you serious? Like, come on now. Like, this is not a winning argument at all. So they go on and on about ICE, right? And he completely lies on Kamala Harris, you guys. It was disgusting because he said Kamala Harris wanted to abolish ICE. Kamala Harris never said that.
So it'd be wrong for us. So when AOC said this week that ICE should be abolished, you disagree?
Oh, I disagree when I think a candidate for president by the name of Harris said that in the last campaign. I came out. I remember being on Chris Hayes hours later saying, I think that's a mistake. So absolutely. Number two, as it relates to the issue of sanctuary policy.
Bitch, stop lying. It's so funny because Politico, they had to fact check that because last year, well, not last year, I forgot, we're in 2026 now. In 2024, when Kamala was running, Trump tried to run with she wants to abolish ICE, and she never had that position at all. A lot of people try to give her the position of defund the police. And she said, hey, defunding the police is just reimagining how law enforcement does things, how they treat people. So even then, she had a clear answer. So all this defund the police or abolish ICE, Kamala Harris never said that. So him trying to take a dig at Kamala Harris, yeah, he already sees her as competition for 2028. So he's all like, yeah, let me take a dig at her. But it's so crazy that he would say that. And that point had been debunked a year ago, over a year ago now, because we're in 2026, right? Yeah, Gavin is playing dirty, you guys. He cannot be trusted. But not only that, one of the biggest issues that people still bring up about Kamala Harris is the Gaza thing. And I hate to say it's a Gaza thing because literally it is a genocide. Let's call it what it is. It's literally an ethnic cleansing. If you look at Gaza or Palestine in 1948 compared to now, it's almost gone. And I'm pretty sure that part of this little peace treaty, even though they're still dropping bombs on Gaza, this peace treaty that they have, they're probably going to take more land. But this was Gavin Newsom's response to the whole genocide. He completely missed the mark on this one. Let's take a look.
I'll continue to be critical of Republicans who flirt with this sort of stuff. I wish that the Democratic Party were as critical of sitting Congress members who not only flirt with this sort of stuff, but overtly traffic in this sort of stuff. You know, I mean, I'll ask you about Zohar Mamdani. Zohar Mamdani, literally in the campaign. In the campaign, he was asked on Fox News about Hamas, and he refused to denounce it as a terrorist group.
They are a terrorist group, and they should have been announced. I was there, as you know, a few weeks after.
Only 7 nations recognize Hamas as a terrorist group.
Yes.
October 7th, met with Bibi. Not a big fan of Bibi. This is where we have fundamental disagreements. Fine, quite the contrary, in fact.
But staying on domestic politics for a second, it seems to have become a sort of de rigueur requirement for Democrats who are running for office to now suggest, for example, Scott Wiener just did this, he's running for Congress, that Israel committed a genocide in Gaza. That is, forget about anti-Semitism and discussions of it, because I think that those have become really loose and people don't have a consistent definition of anti-Semitism. Let's just talk about what's true.
That's true. I think it's true about the definition. I mean, we, as you know, have been struggling with that in California as it relates to a lot of laws and legislation. Of course,
anti-Semitism is a fundamentally different cat than, for example, racism. It's basically a conspiracy theory about Jewish power in the world. And
it makes me sick to my stomach. And I say that clearly. And but not just, of course. I mean, we've tried to lead in terms of our response.
He tried to make sure he can get some of the AIPAC money.
And we've called out and called balls and strikes in terms of the outrageous things that have happened.
So I would, in my own framework of anti-Semitism, I think that saying overtly false things about the Jewish state is a form of anti-Semitism. But I don't think that is really important as much as it is it true or not? So Democrats have now been dragged into this conversation, some run with, flags waving into the conversation
this notion of genocide.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, look,
Israel did not commit a genocide in Gaza. There is no standard by which Israel committed a genocide in Gaza, just on a factual level.
Just as a legal and factual level.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is your opinion of this?
My opinion is I understand the tendency for people to assert that.
Why?
On the basis of the images and the proportionality as it relates
doesn't
to
mean genocide.
No. And by the way, I agree with you.
And international and proportionality doesn't mean that if you kill my child.
So when you have a little over 2 million people in one area, and you done killed about over 100,000 of their people, I mean, what else do you call it? Does it have to be that they have basically 10% of their population? Hopefully it doesn't get to that, but 10% of their population not existing anymore? Do you need them all dead in order to recognize it as a genocide when you're literally dropping bombs on hospitals, schools, and on civilians? Literally, those tent cities that you've seen around in Gaza, and they were still dropping bombs on them. This is crazy. And their excuse is, oh, they were hiding. They were hiding out in the amongst the civilians. Well, how come the toll of however many people are in a Hamas is not more than the actual civilians who have died? Like, that's what's crazy to me. You would think that the number of Hamas that they were killing should be higher than the number of civilians. And it's not. It's the adverse. So with that being said, I don't know what else you would call it. It's definitely wrong. Like, if anything, and Gavin want to say, oh, well, it's because people are looking at images. Okay, besides looking at the images, we know exactly what it is. And it's all like, do we have to look up the definition of what a genocide is in order to call it? And it's so crazy because there are people who recognize it as a genocide. This is not a thing that people are just saying online. Like, it's been recognized by the UN. Like, yes, this is a genocide. It says genocide is a deliberate destruction in a whole or in part of a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group involving acts like killing, causing serious harm, imposing life conditions to destroy them, preventing births, or forcibly transferring children as defined by the UN Convention of Genocide. Bombing hospitals, women and children being killed. They had to remember, it was like a famine. It was a large amount of famine. They were eating horse feed or something like that. Some animal feed. I think it was just animal feed, but they're eating animal feed. Remember, because they were stopping, talking about Israel was stopping first aid and supplies getting into Gaza. Remember that? They're probably still doing that. What am I talking about? They're still doing that. So with that being said, I don't know what else you would call it. If you're stopping humanitarian aid into getting into a nation and you're making those people and you're letting those people starve and die, people being amputated without any anesthesia, or I don't know what else you call it. Like, that's the crazy part. What name do you call it if you don't call it a genocide?
Right. And I then kill 7 criminals that I've been disproportionate.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but I think but I understand that tendency on the basis of trying to reconcile the proportionate nature of how the war was ultimately conducted.
I have a question. Why do you feel the need to create a permission structure for that sort of stuff? I mean, meaning it's not true. Yeah. Why not just say it's not true?
Yeah, look, I don't know the definition, or I don't know the legal threshold. That's not my opinion, so I don't share that opinion as it relates to genocide. I do not agree with that notion. But
you do understand that if you accuse Israel of committing a genocide, that now puts Israel in the position of it should be a pariah state, because states that commit genocide should be pariah states. Yeah. So granting legitimacy to that position inherently.
I'm not granting legitimacy. I'm just saying
Notice how Ben, and you'll see this if you watch the whole interview, how he has to like pressure him for an answer, because Gavin Newsom wants to talk about everything under the sun except the actual question that he's being asked.
The devastation in Gaza, at the human level, you've got 4 kids.
Of course, it's terrible.
No, but I think it's also important to absorb that a little bit more. Just as it was sick, and we were clear in our condemnation, these people like me, as it relates to what Hamas did in that act of barbarism and terrorism.
Yeah, but there's a difference between deliberate terrorism and wartime collateral damage, of course. And if we refuse to acknowledge that reality, then we end up equating
collateral damage. I have stronger opinions. It wasn't just collateral.
Really, you think that Israel is targeting civilians?
I think some of the double tapping issues. I have a lot of issues with how Bibi ultimately conduct the war. I personally do, and I have a lot of issues that are also painted on the basis of the conversation I had when a few weeks later, after October 7th, the way he talked about the Palestinians. I kept talking about Hamas. He kept talking about the Palestinians. I kept coming back to Hamas, and then ultimately how the war was.
Yes, because he wants all the Palestinians gone. They don't recognize them as, oh, this is Hamas and this is Palestinians, because they're literally killing them all.
Conducted. Not saying it was a genocide. I'm not. but I have issues.
What is
with
the
that.
thing that he said that you particularly?
There was a dehumanization. I didn't like the way he talked about the Palestinian people. I just didn't.
What is the specific? Thing
they can't govern. I didn't. I don't want to get into the details.
The
of the
reason I'm asking is because when you suggest that he is conflating Hamas and the Palestinians,
he wasn't conflating.
Of course, it does lead to the conclusion.
They were different. It wasn't. No. It was. I'm just saying the way he ultimately conducted it. I look back at that conversation. I reflect on rather that conversation. It doesn't surprise me, and I did not think it was proportionate.
Okay,
and I thought it was overwhelming, and the devastation and destruction breaks my heart.
Okay, so you're president of the United States. Somebody invades from Mexico. They take several thousand American citizens.
I get it. And by the way,
they hold them all the way until the end of the war. Until the end of the war, there are hostages being held.
Don't get me wrong on any of this. I'm with you in terms of the ultimate accountability and bringing the hostages home. I like the clarity and conviction as it relates to getting all the hostages dead and alive home, and all of that. I'm not.
Let's cut the shit. So there were reports that Bibi knew all about the attack that Hamas planned on October 7th. But they let it happen. You have to look at it this way. And it's so crazy that he's not even mentioning this. So everything that they do in Gaza is heavily monitored. Like literally, in order for people in Gaza to go into Israel for like medical care and treatment and stuff like that, they have to have a special passport or some kind of badge or something like that that allows them to go. And sometimes they're still denied those permissions to be able to enter into Israel. So you're telling me that they literally got some parachutes and some big ass blow fans, and they were able to fly over into that festival, and no one knew that was going to happen. They were all surprised and thrown off. It's not like they threw it was like jet planes and like bombs. No, they literally flew on parachutes and with big ass wind fans. Let's move on from this. So, of course, Gavin Newsom throws trans people under the bus again. And what's funny is that he actually mentions that he has a godchild who is trans. So you would think that he'd be able to answer this question.
And look, I'm with the Governor Spencer Cox, who said about many of these issues, never so much attention been placed on so few people.
And the problem is, I do think that on an electoral level, to go to the politics, it is a barrier to entry for a lot of people. When
I
you
agree
say,
with that.
When you say, boy, can become a girl.
Yeah.
And then just on a realistic.
And by the way, and I respect if that's your barrier to then listening to people on a myriad of other issues, so be it. It is what it is.
I just find it strange that even if you wish to have a public policy that pursues something different, we cannot just admit that boys and girls are two different things and that a boy cannot become a girl. Why is this so difficult?
Yeah, I understand your point of view. And I also respect Caitlyn Jenner. I do.
And not respect for individuals.
Well, no,
I can tell you a story. This is there was
I just and by the way,
I was speaking at University.
This is a harder thing for me too. As you may know, and you probably do. I have a trans godson. It's there's a little more. I find the humanity. I find different aspects of this, different layers.
This goes back to my sort of truth.
But I know you're fat.
But here's the thing about the conversation, because I think with the Democrats, like they always fumble on this answer about the trans issue. Knowing that Gavin Newsom has a godson who is trans, you should be able to answer like, hey, well, when it comes to gender affirming care, we know that there has been studies about children wanting to commit unalivings of themselves being denied certain cares. Now, also, when it comes to gender affirming care, yes, they do get hormone replacement therapy or hormone blockers. That's what it is before they go through puberty and stuff like that, right? However, one of the main things that they don't point out is that this gets twisted into you're allowed to have surgeries. No, they're not allowed to. No one's getting they D cut off or they vagina change into a P. Like no one's doing that. Like that's not true. As a child, you cannot get that done. I think legally the youngest on record in the United States was like 17, but those are special cases. But this is not some situation where they're going into schools and then coming out. They went to school a boy and then they come out a girl, or they went as a girl and then coming out as a boy. Like that is not true at all. And then here's the other thing too. trans people are all already in the schools. I remember talking to my little cousin a couple of years ago, and he was all like, "Hey, did y'all have trans people when you were in school?" And I was like, "No, we didn't have that." He was like, "Yeah, we got a few, and they're cool, they're nice, they're respectful. Like they're already in school. So us having a conversation on whether or not they should be here or like only 10% of the youth is trans, but trans people make up at least a little over a million or under a million. They're only like 1% in general, but most people transition in adulthood, not during childhood, mostly in adulthood. It's only a small percentage that do. Just like the sports, there's not that many trans people in sports. The only time we hear about it if a trans person wins, but there are trans people who do play sports at the end of the day. Now, when it comes to the NCAA and the Olympics, they actually make sure that you have transitioned fully before you can even participate. Even then, I do think there is some unfairness because say if you wait a year and then, you went on hormone therapy and now you're going to play, like, hold on, we need you to, be on, listen, the Olympics is a lot stricter because Olympics, you actually need to have the sex change. And they make sure that, okay, well, this is what you want to be. Okay, well, you need to go ahead and get all the work done first, and then you can participate in sports. So it is a heavy conversation because, again, there is a level of fairness when it comes to sports. And then also when it comes to children, like, do I think children should transition young? No. However, that decision is between the parent and the doctor. It's not that the parent can go ahead and force a child to be there. They go through an extensive amount of therapy before it even gets to that point of when they can start doing the hormone replacement or, the hormone blockers and stuff like that. It's a process. It's not just overnight. And that's something that Gavin Newsom, him having a trans godchild, should know that, right? So again, I think Gavin Newsom, this whole interview, thank you, Ben Shapiro, again, because he does not need to be the 2028 candidate at all, because Gavin Newsom can't even hold true to his own convictions. Like in the state of California, you have all the rules protecting trans children. Like, how are you going against something that you already have? And then just knowing that he threw his press office under the bus with that tweet about Renee Good. Dude, there's a whole Hispanic woman from Stockton, California. I used to go to school in Stockton, California, who does his tweets and stuff like that. And she works hard. Like everyone has been looking at Gavin Newsom like, oh, look, he's a fighter. Well, it depends. Is he fighting for us or is he fighting for himself or fighting for a position to become the new president? Who is he fighting for? Because I think the president should fight for the people and not for themselves. I mean, look at Donald Trump. He's definitely fighting for himself. Do we want another Trump? I mean, I guess having a Democratic Trump is better than having a Republican Trump, but is it really? Y'all, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate y'all for being here, but we out. Deuces, everybody.